I never thought a single photo could break me. I was sipping my morning coffee when Facebook showed me a memory I didn't create, my daughter smiling, holding a baby I'd never seen. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. That tiny face, her baby, my grandson. She never called, no message, no letter. Just a photo for the world, but not for me. That's when I realized I wasn't just missing from her wedding or her celebrations. I wasn't even on the guest list of her life anymore. They say a mother's love doesn't fade with time, it deepens. But no one ever tells you how painful that depth can become when the person you love most starts quietly slipping away. My name is Margaret Lewis, though most people in town call me Maggie. I live alone in a small coastal town in South Carolina, where the mornings are peaceful. The ocean breeze carries the scent of salt and magnolia, and every face is familiar. It's the kind of place where people still wave from their porches, where neighbors look in on you if they haven't seen you in a few days. Some folks say it's the perfect place to grow old. I used to think so too. I wasn't always alone. I used to be a wife, sitting beside a man who knew how to calm my worries with just the touch of his hand. My husband, Thomas, was a steady soul, believed in hard work, Sunday church, and the kind of love you stay faithful to, even after heaven calls one of you home. When he passed, I thought the grief would swallow me whole. But I had. Anna, our only daughter, our pride, our miracle after years of praying. I remember the day I dropped her off at college. She hugged me so tight I could feel her heartbeat against mine. "Mom," she laughed through tears, "don't you dare cry. This is a happy day." I smiled, even as my heart begged her not to let go. From that moment, I built my life around her future. Every Sunday call was my joy. Every visit was a celebration. I never remarried. I didn't need to. Anna was enough. But life has a quiet way of changing. It doesn't announce it's shifting. It just begins. Slowly, Anna's calls turned from hours, long conversations to quick check-ins. "Sorry, Mom, I'm heading into a meeting." "I'll call you later, I promise." Later started coming days, then weeks, too late to still be called later. I told myself it was normal. Children grow up, they start their own lives. It was my job to give her wings, wasn't it? But a mother knows. You can hear it. Not in what they say, but in what they no longer say. One morning, I set out 2 plates at the kitchen table. Out of habit, I stared at the empty seat across from me and felt a strange ache, not sharp, but dull, steady, like a clock ticking in a quiet room. I realized then, my daughter wasn't just busy. She was slowly building a life where I wasn't included anymore. Still, I held on to hope. She was my child, my heart, my reason, and I told myself, maybe next Sunday she'll call. Maybe next month she'll visit. I had no idea that the next time I'd see her face would not be in my home, not even on a phone call, but in a photo shared with the entire world, a world I was no longer part of. They say life can change in a single moment, but the truth is, sometimes it changes with a single image. It was a Tuesday morning. I remember because Tuesdays are when the local bulletin is delivered, and I always sit by the window with my coffee while I read the paper and watch the world slowly wake up. The house was quiet, the way it always is now. The ocean breeze slipped through the screen door, and for a brief moment I felt a tiny bit of peace. I wasn't expecting anything unusual when I opened my laptop. Just a quick check of my email, a glance at the weather forecast. I wasn't looking for surprises. But life doesn't ask if you're ready. As I scrolled, something caught my eye, a bright photo on my Facebook homepage. Not sent to me, not messaged, just there. And a 10 packus, justest. Out in the world. Public. It was Anna, holding a baby. My heart stopped. For a second, I couldn't even breathe. My eyes blurred as if refusing to accept what they were seeing. I leaned forward, my hand trembling over the mouse. The caption read, "Welcome to the world, Noah James. Our hearts are forever changed," followed by a heart emoji, a family emoji, a family emoji, and dozens of congratulations from people I'd never met, people who knew before I did. My daughter had become a mother, and I wasn't even told. The sound in the room changed. It was as if the world went silent. The seagulls outside, the wind, even my heartbeat. It all faded beneath the weight of that truth. I stared at the screen, my breath caught somewhere between disbelief and heartbreak. And then came the comments. Candeces. He's beautiful. Your mom must be over the moon. Your family is complete now. Can't wait to meet him. But in those celebrations, there was no tag for me. No mention, not even a hint that I existed. I wasn't just excluded, I was erased. A tear finally fell, landing on my hand. It startled me. I hadn't even realized I was crying. Thoughts began to race through my mind. When was this taken? How far along was she? How could I not know? What did I do wrong? I zoomed into the photo, desperate for clues. Anna looked tired but radiant. The baby, Noah, slept peacefully against her chest, his tiny fingers curled into her shirt. And there, beside her, with his arm around her shoulders, was a man I had only seen once in a photo years ago. The man she had told me she was just casually seeing. They looked like a family I wasn't part of. I sat there, frozen, the hot mug of coffee turning cold in my hands. Memories flooded in of Anna as a baby herself, wrapped in the yellow blanket I had knitted for her, of her first steps on this very porch, of the nights I stayed up with her when she had nightmares, running my fingers through her hair, whispering, "Mommy's here, you're safe." I had been there for every moment of her life, until now. Without realizing it, I whispered aloud, "Why didn't you tell me, Anna? Why didn't you need me?" But no answer came, just the echo of my own voice in an empty room. I don't remember how long I sat there staring at that photo, but when I finally moved, it wasn't to cry. It was to stand. Something inside me shifted. Not anger, no. It was deeper than that. It was the quiet pain of a mother realizing she no longer knew her child. And with that pain came a question that would haunt me until I found the answer. What do you do when your child starts a life you were never meant to be part of? When people talk about heartbreak, they often describe it as something sharp, something explosive. But what I felt in the days after seeing that photo wasn't sharp at all. It was slow, heavy. Like walking through water you can't see the bottom of. I didn't pick up the phone to call Anna, and she didn't call me either. It was strange at first, the way the absence of sound becomes its own presence. I used to listen for the ring around the same time every Sunday. I would keep my schedule free, coffee poured, sometimes even bake muffins just in case she said, "Mom, let's video call while you eat." But the Sunday after I saw that photo, I sat there with my phone face down. I refused to check it, because checking it meant hoping, and I didn't have any more room left in me for disappointment. Life continued around me in the way it always does. The mail came. The birds still visited my garden. The neighbor's dog barked at the mailman every afternoon. The world didn't break just because I did. 3 days after seeing the photo, my neighbor and dear friend, Helen Carter, came by unannounced. Helen was 60, a retired librarian with a straightforward way of speaking, what the softest heart God ever made. She noticed the look on my face the moment I opened the door. "You didn't sleep," she said, not asking, but stating a fact. "I'm fine," I replied, which was the biggest lie I'd ever told. Helen stepped inside holding a box of lemon cookies. She went straight to the kitchen, our routine for over 20 years, and began placing them on a plate like it was a sacred duty. I saw something. Online, I finally said, my voice fragile. I took a breath. Anna had a baby. She never told me. Helen stopped moving. Slowly she turned around, eyes soft with heartbreak, not just for the news, but for the way I had to say it. "Oh, Maggie," she whispered. I nodded, unable to speak further. She motioned for me to sit. She sat across from me and took my hands in hers, warm, steady. "What are you going to do?" she asked gently. "I don't know," I said truthfully. "I haven't even decided whether I should be angry or just sad." "You don't have to decide yet," Helen said. "Feel what you feel. But that was the hardest part. The feeling was layered. Sadness mixed with guilt. Anger tangled with loneliness. I kept wondering if I'd failed somehow. Had I clung too tightly? Had she pushed me away because she felt I wouldn't approve? I replayed every conversation we'd had in the last year, trying to find the moment we lost each other. In the evenings, when the light began to fade across the walls, I would wander through the house, touching memories as though they were fragile artifacts. The baby blanket I'd knitted when Anna was born. The quilt I had made from her childhood clothes. The wall of framed photos, birthdays, recitals, first days of school, all moments where I stood right beside her. Now, she had created a memory without me in it. A painful thought came to me one night as I sat by the window listening to the crickets. Perhaps I had become a memory too, for her. Something that belonged in the past, not the present. I tried not to dwell, but sorrow has a way of filling every quiet space. The mind is a house with too many rooms, and every room held a reminder. There was one room I had not opened in a long time, Anna's old bedroom. I pushed the door open one afternoon. The air had that stillness only found in rooms where time has stopped. Manasonazem. The twin bed was still made with her childhood quilt, yellow with tiny sunflowers. Her bookshelf still held her Nancy Drew mysteries and high school trophies. It felt wrong that the rest of her life had moved on without me, yet this room stayed, frozen in my care. I sat on her bed and whispered, "Where did I lose you?" A few days later, I found myself sitting at Thomas' grave. I hadn't planned to go. My car just seemed to drive there on its own. The cemetery was quiet, peaceful. The magnolia tree near his tombstone had just started blooming, white petals falling like gentle tears on the grass. I placed my hand on the cool stone. "You would have been proud, Tom," I said softly. "We have a grandson. His name is Noah." I paused, but I wasn't there to meet him. She didn't tell me. Saying it out loud made the truth more real, but strangely, it also made it lighter. Words, once spoken, aren't as heavy to carry. On the way home, I realized something important. I had spent my entire life waiting for others to need me, waiting for Anna to call, waiting for someone to knock on my door, waiting to be included again. But what if waiting wasn't love? What if waiting was just another kind of slow heartbreak? That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a blank notebook. I wrote only 5 words, "Or what do I want now?" The question startled me. For decades, I had only asked, "What does she need? What can I do for her?" I had never asked what I needed to feel whole. Helen came over the next morning with brochures for a local community program, a weekend retreat for retired women. Activities included art therapy, ocean walks, and guided journaling. I almost pushed it away. It felt selfish to think of myself when my family was drifting away from me. But Helen looked me in the eye and said, "Maggie, you've spent your whole life giving. Maybe it's time to receive. You can love your daughter and still choose yourself." Her words sank deep. She wasn't telling me to walk away from Anna. She was telling me to walk toward myself. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night, and when I woke up, the house didn't feel as heavy. The silence was still there, but it no longer echoed with only loss. There was a new sound inside me, soft, small, but present. It was the sound of something beginning. There comes a moment in every life when grief pauses not because it has vanished, but because something inside you quietly decides, "This is not how my story will end." For me, that moment came the next morning. The house was as quiet as ever, the sun spilling gently through the lace curtains in my kitchen. I poured myself a cup of coffee and, without consciously choosing to, I reached for a box sitting on the kamicha side table. It had arrived the evening before, a welcome kit for the coastal retreat Helen had helped me register for. Inside was a schedule: sunrise meditation, watercolor sessions, ocean walks. At first glance, it seemed like something women with peaceful lives did. But as I traced my finger along the paper, I realized something. Peace isn't something you wait to arrive. It's something you choose, often in the middle of a storm. I folded the paper neatly and whispered to myself, I am choosing to live, even if my daughter hasn't chosen me. That afternoon, I went into town. There was a baby boutique. I'd always passed, but never had reason to enter. The bell above the door chimed as I walked in. Soft pastels covered the walls. Little socks, plush animals, and blankets were neatly folded in baskets. Everything smelled like vanilla and lavender. The saleswoman approached me with a smile, shopping for someone special. I hesitated. My eyes began to sting, but I nodded. Yes, I said. Very special. I ran my hand across a light blue baby blanket, soft cotton, stitched with tiny silver stars. It reminded me of the night I brought Anna home from the hospital. I had wrapped her in a yellow blanket I'd sewn myself. She had fallen asleep against my chest, her tiny breaths in perfect rhythm with my heartbeat. I had believed we would always be that close. My fingers tightened around the new blanket. I'll take this, I said. My voice was calm, steadier than I felt. At the counter, I added a small teddy bear and a handwritten card. On it, I wrote Tater for Noah. From Grandma. Wherever you are, you will always be loved. I didn't write my address. I didn't write a message for Anna. I wasn't ready for that, not yet. This gift wasn't about asking to be let in. It was about saying, even if you close the door, I will still pour love through the keyhole. When I left the shop, the wind was stronger than usual, lifting my hair. I looked up at the sky. The clouds were opening, just a little. It felt like the world was breathing with me. The drive to the retreat was exactly 2 hours, most of it along the coast. As I got closer, the air changed. It smelled like salt and memory, like every summer I had once spent with Anna building sandcastles and collecting shells in our pockets. The retreat center stood on a quiet bluff overlooking the Atlantic. White cottages stretched along the path, each with a rocking chair on the porch. A wooden sign read, "Welcome. You are not here to forget your story. You are here to remember yourself within it." I felt nervous as I stepped out of my car. I hadn't been around new people in a long time, not socially, not without the buffer of being someone's mother, someone's wife, someone's teacher. This time, I was just me. An event coordinator greeted me warmly. "Mrs. Lewis." "Yes," I said. My voice sounded unsure, as if confirming my own identity. "We're so happy you're here." "An event tentadentiden." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Happiness felt like too big a word for what I was feeling. I wasn't happy, but I was present, and sometimes presence is the first miracle. My room overlooked the ocean. The sound of waves greeted me before I even unpacked. I sat by the window and let the wind move through me. For the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for my phone to ring. There was a welcome gathering that evening. Women from all over the country sat in a circle, some laughing, some quiet. The facilitator, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes, began with a simple prompt, "Tell us one thing you forgot you loved." One woman said, "Singing in my kitchen." Another said, "Painting sunsets." A third whispered, "Being alone without feeling lonely." When it was my turn, my voice caught, but I spoke. I forgot that my life is still happening. There was a silence in the room, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was understanding. Had there. Later, during a walk along the beach, I felt something inside me release, like a knot that had been tied too long. The tide was coming in, washing away footprints. I thought of all the years I had spent defining myself only in relation to others. I had been Anna's mother, Thomas's wife, Mrs. Lewis the teacher. But who was Maggie? As the sky turned pink and gold, I understood something important. I could love my daughter with all my heart and still step into my own life. These two truths were not enemies. They were companions. That night, I stood on the porch and looked up at the stars. The same stars that now hung over New York City, over Anna and little Noah. Distance no longer felt like punishment. It felt like space where healing could grow. I whispered into the wind, "I love you, Anna, but I need to love me too." And for the first time since I saw that photo, my heart didn't shatter at the thought of my daughter. It simply ached gently. A reminder that love, even when bruised, still beats. Beats. As I lay in bed, the ocean whispering its eternal lullaby, I closed my eyes and let sleep come, not filled with dreams of what I had lost, but with the quiet promise of what I might still find. The sky was painted with late afternoon gold when I returned home from the retreat. My house looked the same, yet something in me had changed. I walked through each room slowly, touching the walls like greeting an old friend. There was mail on my table, mostly advertisements and catalogs. I set them aside. Just as I was about to make a cup of tea, I heard a soft knock on the door. Not urgent, not loud, gentle. Hésitant, my breath caught in my chest. I opened the door, and there she was, Anna. Her eyes were red, as though she had cried from the moment she left the city. Her hair was pulled back in a loose bun, and in her arms, wrapped in that very same blue blanket I had mailed, was the baby I had only seen through a screen. My grandson, Noah. For a long moment, none of us moved. The world around us seemed to hold its breath. "Hi, Mom," she whispered. I felt tears fill my eyes, not like before. This time, not from pain, but from the overwhelming presence of everything I had once lost, now standing before me. I stepped aside without a word. She entered. The house, once quiet, filled with the soft sound of Noah's breathing. We sat in the living room. Anna's hands were shaking. She held the baby close and finally spoke. "I saw your rift," she said, her voice breaking. "I saw the blanket. He won't sleep without it. And when I read your name, I realized what I'd done. I shut you out of the most important part of my life because I was scared. Scared you'd think I wasn't ready. Scared you'd see me fail." I looked at her, my heart both aching and healing at the same time. "Oh, Anna," I said softly. "I never needed you to be perfect. I just needed to be there." That was it. Her face crumpled, and the walls she had built for years came crashing down. She started to cry, not the quiet, polite kind, but deep, trembling sobs that came from the child still hiding inside her. "I'm sorry, Mom," she cried. "I'm so sorry. Please, will you be part of his life?" I reached out, gently taking Noah in my arms. The moment I held him, something clicked into place, as if my heart had been missing a piece, and it finally returned home. He opened his tiny eyes and stared at me with the innocent gaze of someone untouched by the mistakes of adults. At that moment, I knew forgiveness was not a gift I was giving. Anna, it was a gift I was giving myself. I looked at my daughter. "There will be days when we hurt," I said quietly. "But love doesn't vanish just because we lose our way. We find our way back. Together." Anna nodded, tears still falling. She laid her head on my shoulder, just like she used to when she was a little girl afraid of thunderstorms. And right there, in that simple moment, the storm finally ended. We didn't rush to talk about the past. We didn't try to fix every moment of silence that had lived between us. Instead, we sat in the present, 3 generations together, breathing the same soft air of forgiveness. As the sun set outside, the house began to glow with warm light. Later, Anna said, "Mom, can I stay for a few days? Ryan will come this weekend. We want to talk, as a family. A family." The word felt new again, not painful, not lost. Just possible. I placed Noah in the cradle I had once bought for Anna and kept all these years. He slept peacefully, holding the corner of the blue blanket close to his cheek. I watched him for a moment and whispered to myself, love always finds its way back, even through silence. Sometimes life doesn't ask us if we're ready for change. It simply delivers it right at our doorstep, wrapped in tears, truth, and hope. If you are listening to my story today and you too have someone you love but don't speak to anymore, maybe this is your moment. Not to chase them, not to lose yourself again, but to open the door just in case love decides to return. Because forgiveness is not about forgetting the past. It's about choosing a future where love still has a place. If this story touched your heart today, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been left out of someone's life, only to find your way back to them? Or maybe you're still waiting. You're not alone. Comment your story. Like this video if you believe in second chances. Subscribe to the channel to hear more real, healing stories just like this one, because sometimes one story can be the beginning of someone else's healing.